Welcome to your Newsmax Daily for Friday, January 31st, 2025. 1/31/25, the fifth Friday of the year and the final day of the first month of the new year. So far, we've had the New Orleans terror attack on New Year's Day, the LA wildfires. Last night was that huge benefit concert in LA, and we've had the first passenger jet crash in nearly 16 years. The new month starts tomorrow, and let's pray it's less eventful and less tragic than the month of January. You remember a month ago when New Year's Day and the terror attack was on Wednesday, I said the first 3 days of the month are Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, as in W, T, and F. It has certainly been a month. In the past 24 hours, we've learned about the 64 victims of American Eagle Flight 5342, including the Charlotte-based flight crew, the 14 figure skaters, 6 of them from a Boston skating club, a group of hunters returning from a hunting trip, and an Ohio college student returning from her grandfather's funeral. Teenagers, mothers, fathers, people whose families will never be the same. The stories of those lives, their legacies, and the 3 soldiers will go on. What we haven't learned yet is much about the crash itself. I watched multiple videos over and over yesterday, dozens of times. And yes, they're from different angles. They're relatively far away. It's dark. But in all of them, it seems like the helicopter just traveled a long way straight into the plane. You keep hearing all these assessments about if the chopper was going up and the plane was coming in, how they possibly couldn't see them and this and that. But in all of the videos, it doesn't seem like the chopper is just lifting up and there's the plane, right? Again, the helicopter appears to travel a pretty good distance, essentially in a straight line, right into the jet. This is retired Air Force General Blaine Holt on Newsmax.
All I can see with the naked eye is an aircraft on final approach in protected airspace going to a major airport in our nation's capital, and a helicopter that has a straight vector line to that aircraft. And to me, that's unexplainable. And so we're going to learn more in this investigation. And I'm not in any way suggesting that there's a nefarious act here. There's a very tragic thing that's happening here. But what we have to find out very quickly, especially because it's our nation's capital, and when we think about all of the events that have happened over this last year in our country, we have to mind the store, and we have to look at this from 360 points on the compass. And NTSB is going to be under so much pressure. I don't envy their task.
The NTSB did hold another news conference this morning.
In the cases of these major investigations, it will take a year, if not more, for us to come to a final probable cause. But the most important thing is the work doesn't just end then. We make recommendations so that we don't have tragedies like this again in the future.
That's National Transportation Safety Board member Todd Inman, who said the passenger jet's black box and voice recorder has been recovered, and they will begin the tedious process of extracting the data and piecing it all together. There was a lot of talk about President Trump's news conference yesterday, and then I will get into the confirmation hearings. We have a lot on that, obviously. First, this from Chris Plante, host of The Right Squad on Newsmax.
President Trump ruffled a few feathers today, taking shots at the previous Biden administration, the Obama administrations, for lowering America's aviation standards, saying that they put policy, left-wing policy, over public safety.
I changed the Obama standards from very mediocre at best to extraordinary. You remember that. Only the highest aptitude, they have to be the highest intellect and psychologically superior people were allowed to qualify for air traffic controllers. That was not so prior to getting there. When I arrived in 2016, I made that change very early on because I always felt this was a job that, and other jobs too, but this was a job that had to be superior intelligence, and we didn't really have that, and we had it. And then when I left office and Biden took over, he changed them back to lower than ever before. I put safety first. Obama, Biden, and the Democrats put policy first.
Now, President Trump also showed up with the receipts talking about this, reading a story about the Biden administration's diversity, equity, and inclusion push, hiring individuals with disabilities.
I do want to point out that various articles that appeared prior to my entering office, and here's one. The FAA's diversity push includes focus on hiring people with severe intellectual and psychiatric disabilities. That is amazing. And then it says FAA says people with severe disabilities are most underrepresented segment of the workforce, and they want them in, and they can be air traffic controllers. I don't think so.
The FAA is taking issue with this, saying all applicants must meet the same rigorous standards, whether they're disabled or not, and that in 2022, for example, more than 50,000 people applied for an air traffic position. Only 1,000 of them made it to the first day. This is former FBI agent and retired Navy SEAL Jonathan Gilliam on Newsmax with Bianca De La Garza.
It sounds like there may have been some type of issue with communications. I don't know if it's radio frequency, but what do you think, Jonathan, could have been a potential problem last night in the air?
Well, first off, let me just say that press conference was so impressive, and I'm sure that General will feel the same way as I do, is that when you have the Commander-in-Chief with his Secretary of Transportation, his Secretary of Defense, and the Vice President, and not only giving an incredible brief, but allowing them the opportunity to also brief and say very poignant, team-oriented things, it shows you where this administration is going. and what they bring to the table versus the last one. Now, when we look at this accident that happened last night, I have not heard it, but there's reports that that you can hear the helicopter pilot talking back to ATC and affirming what they had told them. I have not heard that. So if ATC and the helicopter were able to communicate, then that takes away, I think, the responsibility from ATC and puts that on the helicopter, because the airline or the airplane that was coming in there, the American Airlines plane, that plane was cleared. It was on a priority pathway where it had the right-of-way. So that helicopter should have been either positioned at a different altitude or should have been aware of that traffic pattern. So if the air traffic control was communicating with that helicopter and telling them to be aware of this, then I think that there's something going on in the helicopter.
Former FBI agent and Navy SEAL Jonathan Gilliam on Newsmax. Late last night, the crew chief and one of the pilots of the Black Hawk helicopter were identified. Chief Warrant Office 2 Andrew Eves of Mississippi was identified by social media posts from his wife, and the crew chief on the helicopter was identified as Ryan O'Hara of Georgia, also a husband and a father. 2 married men with children. The pilot that may have been flying the chopper at the time of the crash, which we will learn, has only been identified as a female with limited flying experience. She was being trained by O'Hara, who is said to have more than 1,000 hours flying in the Black Hawk. President Trump and others made the decision on the night of the crash that the scheduled confirmation hearings for his cabinet picks would go on Thursday as scheduled, because the president, any president, needs to have their team in place, right? Carl Higbie starts us off.
Kash Patel on the Hill. One of the biggest topics that I'm super interested in is the corruption within this federal law enforcement agency that was clearly used against conservatives, up to and including the now sitting president of the United States.
Government overreach and a weaponized system of justice and law enforcement. I know what it feels like to have the full weight of the United States government barreling down on you. And as the Biden Inspector General determined, those activities by the FBI and DOJ were wholly improper and not predicated upon law and facts.
Now, keep in mind, Kash Patel lived this personally, so he knows the position he's vying for, the FBI, is the very position that tried to destroy his life. It's like sweet, sweet karma. This is the same agency that used the Steele dossier.
Was it you that were able to find out that the Steele dossier was a bunch of crap?
Yes, Senator, we followed the money and we exposed the fraud that was the Steele dossier.
And the unverified document that was paid for by an opposing political party to launch an investigation against Donald Trump. The FBI told Twitter and Facebook to take down accounts and posts of people that didn't align with the Democrats' party views. Senior appointees like Peter Strzok in the FBI and his girlfriend Lisa Page, in between their affair, they were actively texting about stopping Donald Trump from becoming president the first time. And the FBI misused the FISA courts and Section 702 nearly 300,000 times, conducting over 200,000 warrantless searches of Americans' information that should have never been served, that should have never been collected, or at bare minimum, that should have been masked. This is why this is important, because this ship has to be righted. The FBI does employ good men and women. I know many of them at many levels. But there are a lot of agents, appointees, and staff that have demonstrated that they don't care about the bounds that they're required to operate in. And Kash Patel is going to end that. But the thing that seemingly every Democrat has been afraid to engage in, has eluded the public forever, was front and center. And it wasn't even asked about Kash Patel that much, but it was an argument between two of the members on the committee, Dick Durbin and Marsha Blackburn, where she called him out. Blackburn called him out about blocking the release of the Epstein client list. And then Durbin picked up a piece of paper and read a prepared statement, apparently written by a lawyer. Like, why did he have a prepared statement on this? Roll this.
Prior to the committee's November 9th 2023 Supreme Court ethics subpoena markup, Senator Blackburn had never raised Epstein's flight logs with me publicly or privately.
I had raised the issue with Chairman Durbin. I had raised it on the floor that we wanted to get these records. I sought recognition. It was not my Republican colleagues that ended that hearing. Mr. Chairman, you had the gavel, and you were the chairman, and you sought not to recognize me. And I know, and you know, and so many people are aware, sir, that you and Christopher Wray did not want those out.
Oh, man, did he look uncomfortable. And Kash Patel just sat back and was like, this is awesome. The Democrats know that list is coming out when Kash Patel gets confirmed. I think he's going to get confirmed. So in some last-ditch effort, Democrats did what they pretty much always do. Racist!
In September of 2023, you appeared with Laura Loomer. A number of my Republican colleagues on this committee have criticized Ms. Loomer's extremism. One of my colleagues described her as a, quote, crazy conspiracy theorist who regularly utters disgusting garbage. Another called her really toxic. Given all of this, why did you associate with Ms. Loomer?
Senator, as you can see, I took a photograph with an individual who showed up at a book event. I don't believe I'm guilty by association, and I certainly don't believe that an individual who was the first minority to serve as the Deputy Director of National Intelligence for this country is a racist in any way, and I detest any conjecture to the contrary.
That didn't go how Dick Durbin planned it, did it?
That's Carl Higbie, host of Frontline, 5 o'clock Eastern. One of the many interesting moments came when Patel was asked about the president commuting the sentences of January 6 defendants.
And I do not agree with the commutation of any sentence of any individual who committed violence against law enforcement.
And you know, the mainstream media or the liberal media, the anti-Trumpers, whatever you want to call it, they love that. Then came the questioning of former Democrat Tulsi Gabbard, who, don't forget, ran for president as a Democrat, and they loved her.
Personally, just 24 hours after I criticized Kamala Harris and her nomination, I was placed on a secret domestic terror watch list called Quiet Skies. Chuck Schumer admitted a few years ago, quote, you take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you. For too long, faulty, inadequate, or weaponized intelligence have led to costly failures and the undermining of our national security and God-given freedoms enshrined in the Constitution. Under John Brennan's leadership, the CIA abused its power to spy on Congress, to dodge oversight, lied about doing it until he was caught, and yet has never been held responsible. Under Biden, the FBI abused its power for political reasons to try to surveil Catholics who attend traditional Latin Mass.
Yeah. This woman ran for president as a Democrat. And then today, Democrats treated her like the enemy because she now supports Donald Trump. In fact, many didn't even let her talk.
Do you believe, as the chairman of this committee believes, as the vast majority of members of our intelligence agencies believe, that Edward Snowden was a traitor to the United States of America?
Senator, if confirmed as Director of National Intelligence, I will work with you to make sure that there is not another Snowden-like leak.
Ms. Gabbard, Ms. Gabbard, I ask you a question. Please give me the courtesy of responding. You said the reforms now make you support it. What can you cite? Which reforms?
There are a number of reforms to include getting rid
in the new law,
that, that all of you and your wisdom.
Ms. Gabbard, my time is getting short.
The irony that guy's from Colorado, does he not remind you of the South Park guy, Mr. Mac? Okay. Did these guys not attend grade school? I mean, you ask a question, and in order to get an answer, you have to shut your mouth for 5 seconds. But they couldn't do that because they didn't want her to talk, because they know that Tulsi Gabbard has information that they don't want to be heard in that venue. So they tried to shut her down, much like RFK, who was back today, and honestly, it was a lot like yesterday, which was awesome. But the one thing that happened that honestly is going to make me sleep better tonight, this exchange between him and Bernie Sanders.
The problem of corruption is not just in the federal agencies, it's in Congress, too. Almost all the members of this panel are accepting, including yourself, are accepting millions of dollars from the pharmaceutical industry.
Oh, no,
and protecting their interests.
Oh, I thought that would go. No. I ran for president like you. I got millions and millions of contributions. They did not come from the executives, not one nickel of PAC money from the pharmaceutical industry. They came from workers.
In 2020, you were the single largest
because I had
receiver of pharmaceutical money
from workers all over this country. Workers,
you were the
not a nickel from corporate
Bernie,
tax.
you were the single largest acceptor of pharmaceutical dollars.
No.
We checked it out, and we showed you the receipts yesterday. It's true. So, Bernie, stay. Look, you take a swing at the best fighter in that sector, Bernie, you better have your hands up. But like I said yesterday, the left fears RFK because he will question the narrative that is making people like Bernie Sanders billions of dollars.
Again, that's Newsmax host Carl Higbie, who also spoke with Oklahoma Senator Markwayne Mullin, who called out Democrats in the Senate hearings.
It absolutely blows my mind that all of a sudden it's such shame that Bobby's sitting up here and he's questioning science, because I guarantee you, if he was sitting here and he was going to be the secretary of HHS underneath the former President Biden, which I enjoy saying former president, I would bet you that you guys would have his back 100% and enjoy the fact that he's questioning science and would probably support his positions 100%. But because he's now on the Republican side, you guys went way off the rail. And how dare he question science? My God, if we didn't question science, where would we be today?
That man is with me now, Oklahoma Senator and member of the Senate Armed Services Committee, Senator Markwayne Mullin. Sir, not only do I love the fact that you're the only one, not the only one, you're like one of 5 in the Senate with an actual pulse, but 2, you do not hold back on these people.
No, and the only thing I regret asking is if we don't question science, I guess we would still be believing that men could have children, because underneath Rachel, the former assistant with HHS, remember, she couldn't define the difference between a man and a woman, and she was trying to convince the American people that a man could give birth. I don't really know how that's possible, but this is the type of science that we had underneath Biden for the last 4 years, and now they're saying that we shouldn't question science. It's ridiculous, Carl, and it's so ridiculous that they're actually challenging a guy that's doing something that we haven't done in a long time, is wanting to change HHS and what they're after right now, because we aren't a healthy society. We aren't improving. We're getting worse. Autism is at an all-time high. Obesity is at an all-time high. Right. We have farmers that are going out of business. We have serious concerns about the foods that we're consuming that other countries around the world aren't, and there's a reason why they're not accepting our farm supplies. Why? Right. Well, we have a guy in Bobby Kennedy that is willing to question that, and I'm excited about it, because President Trump wants to get the government working for the people again, and that's what the American people wanted. Right. And Bobby's the perfect fit for this position.
Well, and Senator, to your point, like if we didn't question science, we'd still be putting leeches on ourselves to get rid of the flu. We would still be having like the Salem witch trials if we didn't question the status quo. And that you're absolutely right. And we talked about this yesterday, but these Democrats voted, plus Murkowski and another Republican, Collins, voted for Rachel Levine, who couldn't even thought he was a woman. So it's like now they're going to vote for Bobby Kennedy because this guy has actually gone out and won lawsuits.
Yeah, and that's my whole point. The hypocrisy of the Democrat Party is so out of control right now, and they're jockeying for positions. You take most of these individuals that's on this panel, right? Their number one dream is to be able to run for president. And I think what you're having on this hearing right now, and on all these confirmations, when they're digging in on Tulsi, digging in on Kash, or digging in on Pete, they're digging on Bobby, is that they're trying to jockey for who the next person is that's going to be crowned, because we know Democrats that don't have primary for presidency, who's going to be crowned the next likely person to be their nominee for president. Because, my Lord, just last summer, they had no bench to move to, so they moved from Biden, whose numbers were in the tank, and went to someone that had worse numbers than Harris. And then they were talking about resurrecting Hillary Clinton. Well, all those ships are sailed, and so there's no one left there. And I really do believe, with everything inside of me, Carl, all this is for show, because you've got people that's in the Senate wanting to be crowned the next nominee to run for president in 4 years.
Oklahoma Senator Markwayne Mullin on Newsmax. And let's wrap it up with a segment from last night's Finnerty.
When it's Donald Trump, Democrats are against it no matter what. Nothing has changed over the last 8 years. We thought it might. It has not. If it is a Donald Trump policy, Democrats are implicitly against it. Democrats are against Trump policies before they become Trump policies. Democrats are against Trump policies even when they make sense. Even if they were once a Democrat policy, they are against it. They are against it even if the American people support them. Right now, more than 60% of Americans support a policy that Donald Trump has been open about from the start. He campaigned on this. He was very clear about what he was going to do if he won the election. And when he did win in November, he announced that all criminal, illegal aliens living in this country would be deported back to their country. Guess what? These people are not our problem. That's common sense. Common sense, but Democrats are still against that policy. And the media are against it, even though they have no idea what they're talking about anymore, if they ever did. At this point, they don't even have the facts down. And unlike 4 years ago, Trump officials aren't trying to be their friends anymore. No one in the Trump White House cares what CNN thinks about them, which is leading to exchanges like this.
None of those illegal aliens are doing farm work. Those 30,000 illegal aliens that Joe Biden dumped into Springfield.
I'm talking about the ones that are.
But I'm explaining this. It's important to understand.
No, you're kind of changing the subject. I mean, I'm talking about the ones.
I will give me 30 minutes. I'll go as deep as you want on this.
We don't have 30 minutes. I don't have a 30. I'm talking about the ones that work in the agriculture industry.
I'm
you
explaining
can come back
to you
and we can talk
audience
about the ones in the cities. I swear.
I'll do the whole answer.
Owned. That's the word. These hosts are now being just completely dominated, and it's happening because they know they're wrong, but more importantly, because the Trump team knows that they now have the support of the American people. Big difference from what we experienced 8 years ago. On Wednesday, the president signed an executive order banning transition surgeries for minors in this country. Common sense. Ending this barbaric practice. His statement reading, quote, "Today it was my great honor to sign an executive order banning chemical castration and medical mutilation of innocent children in the United States. Our nation will no longer fund or support these so-called gender-affirming care practices." The president saying so-called because gender-affirming care is just another one of those terms that the Democrats made up out of thin air. It doesn't affirm anything. It actually makes people sterile for life. And in the not-so-distant past, if you had your private parts surgically removed, that was called a sex change surgery. That's not controversial. That's common sense, because clearly 6-year-olds are not capable of making those decisions. And guess what? Democrats are against that policy, too. I've got 2 children. My daughter likes to play dress-up with her little brother. I'm sure you can relate to that. To be honest, it's really cute. It's also really funny when they come downstairs all dressed up. But never once have my wife and I looked at each other and considered taking our son to a doctor to talk about gender-affirming care. His gender was affirmed when he was born. That's insane. But people are doing that every single day in this country to prove to all their friends just how hip they really are. Hey, we sterilized our kid, they'll tell their friends at book club. That's great. We did the same thing, too. Democrats are against that policy, too. They're against everything that makes sense. They are against common sense, including Tulsi Gabbard, who up until just months ago was not only a Democrat, but she was a rising star in the Democratic Party, to the point where, after an exchange with Kamala Harris on the debate stage in 2020, many Democrats thought Tulsi Gabbard was the future of the party. So if you're applying logic, when Donald Trump nominated Tulsi Gabbard to be his director of national intelligence, you would think that Democrats would applaud that decision. But instead, it's the exact opposite. If it's a Trump policy, they're against it.
My son's gender identity was affirmed when he was born. Thank you, Rob Finnerty. And if you were applying logic, well, that's a big if in Washington, right? Former North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum, remember him, confirmed as Interior Secretary in an overwhelmingly bipartisan vote, 79-18. The Senate also moved Trump's cabinet pick for Energy Secretary Chris Wright and former Georgia Congressman Doug Collins for Veteran Affairs Secretary to a final vote next week, so they'll likely be confirmed. The Senate Budget Committee voted 11-0 to send the nomination of Russell Voigt to the Office of Management and Budget to the full Senate as well. However, Democrats completely boycotted that committee meeting and that vote. They didn't even vote no. It was 11-0, but they didn't vote no. They basically said, we don't like this guy so much, we are just not even going to vote. Mainly because the OMB, the Office of Budget Management, proposed the freeze on funding earlier in the week. Republican Senator Bernie Moreno of Ohio, a frequent guest on Newsmax, called their action extraordinarily juvenile. On Wall Street, stocks opened in the green this morning. The markets did take a breath yesterday when Trump said he would impose tariffs on Mexico and Canada this weekend. But then they ended up in the green at the closing bell. We'll see what happens today. Bitcoin just under $105,000 and XRP down a couple of pennies this morning at $3.10. All right, be sure to keep up with all of the news and breaking developments today and throughout the weekend. There will be plenty of it on Newsmax, N2, and at Newsmax.com. Make sure you're streaming on Newsmax Plus. Simply go to Newsmaxplus.com so you're sure that you're getting all of your favorite shows, hosts, and the fantastic analysis from many, many, many great guests. I'm Tony Marino. Enjoy your weekend. I just thought of this. It is the first weekend since early September that there's no football, college or NFL. Weird. Anyway, enjoy whatever it is you do on the weekends. Be safe and keep on fighting the good fight.
News breaks every minute, every day. You need the app, the Newsmax app. Find it free on your smartphone store. Then watch us anytime, anywhere.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.